This is Crew Tales, Life in the Circus. In the motion picture world, there are an army of dedicated professionals who work behind the scenes to make the movies and shows we watch today. I'm Brad Hodson, and I've spent over 30 years in the motion picture industry. This podcast celebrates the people who make the magic behind the scenes. Stirling Bancroft, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the circus.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Describe in your own words what you do.
I throw electrons from a box and catch them in another box is the most basic way.
Okay. Can you expound on that a little bit? I mean, director of photography, as we know, is someone who's kind of in charge of a department that...
You didn't like my facetious answer, my technical, exactly what I do.
I didn't know where to go with that.
I was hoping to trip you up with that.
Over my head.
Yeah, no. No, we send light out of a box of light, and then we catch it in another box. It's like we just play this magical game of Pong all day long, which is what I like to do. But and if I'm being totally truthful and honest, I think the days that I get to actually go and immerse myself in the world of cinematography are somewhat rare. I think most of the time you're managing personalities, you're managing expectations, you're setting expectations, and then you're trying to fit objects, people, or ideas that don't necessarily click together in a way that you can rubber band and duct tape them together so they can exist together for a moment before everything falls apart again.
So describe a little further on how you would get a look for something. I'm a director, and I see,
Right.
Stirling, in this movie, it takes place on a different planet, but I want it to look more like a 40s or 50s style movie. That's kind of your job to come up with something like that. Describe how you would find that idea.
Well, that's a really interesting and very specific example. I think I would look at the director and kind of wonder, okay, so 40s and 50s, I don't get that yet. Like, if we're doing something that's on another planet, why 40s and 50s on Earth? So I'd begin by asking that question. A lot of directors don't like that question. They're like, no, that's what I want, but you have to ask why. And once you understand that and you figure that out, I often get more information from a director that says, no, that's not what I'm after, or this is different. Like when you challenge someone, they give you a good answer, then your idea is gotten bigger. Like you start to comprehend it better.
And I guess it depends on how the experience of the director. Like a seasoned director will have a better idea of what he or she wants, and has hired you to, because they've been impressed with your reel,
Right.
hired you to fulfill what they're seeing.
I don't think that's true. I think seasoned directors are. I think a lot of times, the more experience a director has, the more they recognize that when you hire a DP, you are hiring a collaborator, someone who's going to go out there and deliver the work that that you expect from them, that you've seen in their reel, and you know kind of what you're going to get because they're usually hiring a seasoned cinematographer as well.
Right.
I think it's the new directors that have a lot of vision and spunk that are really the ones that are saying, this is what I want. It's got to be this. I need this look. I need this style, because they're still carving out their needs and their looks. And then it's your job to go in there and develop their look and their feel on their first couple of projects so that they can refine it and then ease them into the world of filmmaking and directing.
And how would you attach yourself to that? If I'm a new director and I say, well, I want to look like this, I guess every project is different, but they've hired you because you have a certain look and you can put your stamp on it.
Right.
Because DPing is also about people management and
Of
time
course.
management.
Yeah.
So give me an idea of maybe how you would go with a newer director as opposed to a seasoned one.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I look at the references that they like and I try to get in their head as far as what they're after. And so my goal in preparation is to arrive at a look where I understand what they're after so well that when we talk about things, they say, it's got to be this. And I can go, well, I love that, but that's like, we've made some rules. We've created something that's interesting that we want. Do we want to expand our rule set to include this new sentence of information, or do we want to say, okay, that's a bridge too far, because if we do that here, then we'll want to do that in scene 45 and it's not appropriate there.
Right.
Like maybe you're doing a film where, because it's a single character, the camera is always within a 2-foot radius of the character. You're seeing their face, you're seeing what they see, and then you've got one scene where they're not even in that scene. they're in every other scene except this one. And you go, well, in this moment, is it appropriate to shoot this scene? Do we want to break this rule and create the feeling for the audience of an out of body experience? Or is this scene not appropriate for the look and the style that we've created, for the way that it's written, for the way that we're doing it? And you have to ask that question.
Right.
And help the director find the things that don't agree with their own vision. Or as a cinematographer, they go, yeah, but I wanted to feel a body. I feel like we've been with this character so long that I need us to feel like something is up.
Right.
And if you make great rules and you don't break them, I think you've missed an opportunity to make something really important, something matter that allows you to punctuate a moment.
Describe your journey to where you got in your career just now.
My journey. Okay, I failed a lot. I wanted to be. I grew up teaching sailing and teaching skiing. I figured if you do something you love, you'll do lots of it. So that's what I was hoping to do. And I went to acting school, and I wasn't very good. I was very self-conscious, and I much preferred not being in front of the camera or on the stage. And that's something I learned. So I got kicked out of Studio 58, which is one of the best acting schools in the city. I went to UBC to learn how to write, and that didn't quite click with me. But what I found was that there were really good stories that other people were telling, and I wanted to be a part of that process, and that led me to photography. Because then I have the luxury and the privilege of telling somebody else's story through my lens, and I find that very exciting.
What? So you took up photography, and then, I mean, I shouldn't say a huge jump, but taking stills is a bit of a leap to being a director of photography on big shows.
Right.
How fill in that gap for me?
I mean, I was never a huge still photographer. I took some stills. I had a digital SLR. I stole my father's film camera for a bit.
You make your own movies right off the hop then?
No, it was a still camera. So I see what you're saying. No, I went into shooting my directors in my film school class, their films, because I wasn't selected to direct that year.
Right.
I didn't get the directing seed, but I thought, well, I want to be close to that. So I picked up a camera and started learning how to make images that were moving. And I found that incredibly fulfilling.
So then from there, did you get into it professionally and come up the ranks through the camera department or?
A little bit. I mean, I think that I left film school and I started pulling focus for Norm Lee. Sorry if some of those movies are out of focus, Norm. I'm sorry about that. I was really trying, though. I was pulling focus straight out of film school. And I was also shooting little music videos and corporate videos and short films. And one day I parked in the city and my car was broken into and I lost my ditty bag full of assistant tools. And on that day I looked at it and went, okay, so I have a choice here. I was making similar money shooting low budget things as I was working low budget as a focus puller. And I just went, okay, I guess I'm a DP now. And so that was the choice that was made. And once I committed to that choice, it was good. I was able to work for myself a lot, and I was also able to operate for others. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about being a cinematographer is that lots of other cinematographers like to hire other cinematographers. You know, people who are going to
understand what they're after.
That's
more directly,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, congratulations, you just became an SOC member, and I saw that, and I was so impressed. I was like, but that's the kind of thing. If you're an SOC member, you have a name, you have a reputation, you have something that, I'm sorry, I'm tapping the table. You have something that is that means you can't show up on set and point a camera in the direction that's being asked of you. You are a filmmaker, you are a designer of the project. And you carry the weight of that, and sometimes it's annoying because you're asked to do something that's a massive compromise, but it's always, as someone who takes pride in the work, you're always forced to continue that pride and suffer against the constraints and the desires of a risk-adverse mediocre system.
That's funny you say that. My feeling is, anyone who's a CSC or NSC or like myself, SOC, that tells people around that you're not just there to collect a paycheck, that you have a passion about it and you're serious about it. And for me, it's also about trying to be a bit of a mentor at this point in my career, is you want to share what you know
That's right.
and let
And
others
I
know.
see you doing that with the podcast and with
Yeah.
other work that you do. And I think it's really commendable. I think
Yeah.
that it's so amazing to see you doing that work and spreading that knowledge and that information. I think the industry needs more of that. We don't have enough mentors or people who are willing to come to set and teach. I think that we get stressed out and insecure and
Well, thank you. I'm hoping this podcast will reach out, because what I've discovered, and I think we spoke about this earlier, the people that I'm interviewing and the people I meet in the business, they have side hustles. Oh, I say side hustles, hobbies and things that they do that are different, that are inspiring. And
mm,
sometimes it's creative, and sometimes it's just, having a a coffee company. It's just nice to see, and they still think themselves as creative, and
right,
that's
right,
inspiring, because you can be creative in just about anything, even paper pushing.
right.
But I segued a bit. Sorry. Um, what are some of your influences as a younger person that made you go, "Those are the films I want to do. These are the directors I like. These I like."
Mm,
Tell me a bit about those movies and those individuals who made those movies.
right. I mean, I think Janusz Kaminski is fantastic, and I've always been a fan of Spielberg and the way that he moves the camera. I think I'm a big fan of the way that he moves his master around and the way that he covers. And I think that's a very exciting way to work. And I think that it's really important not to over cover a scene. And it's not because it's bad to have options, but the performance from the actors is a limited resource. And if we ask a performer to do a scene 30 times, we're going to get the best performance they can do in 30 takes.
Hmm.
If they know they're going to do it twice, they're going to hit it twice
Hmm.
for the most part.
Right. Right.
And I think knowing that, if you can design the coverage so that it supports the performer, you're going to have a better scene. And when you do that, when you know you're only going twice, the camera has to move.
Right.
You can't get a master, push in, get a mid, come around, get a cowboy, do 3 sizes of close up, because you don't have the time for it. You've got to respect the performer's time and their performance, especially if it's heavy, and you start wider and you push in as you need to, or you pull out as it needs to. And if the characters move across the set, then you follow them because you want to maintain that continuity of performance. I find that cinematography, when it supports that idea, you get better images. And when you don't put a long lens and a tight lens, the lighting looks better and the sound can get in.
Right.
When you've got a dark side to camera, the boom has a place to stand.
Right.
Like, there's a way of making movies where if you're thoughtful and considerate, everyone has a place to be, and it works really well. And I think that Spielberg is a master of that.
I agree. I had the opportunity to work with him
Oh, you
many years ago.
didn't?
Yeah.
Did you operate for him?
I operated a remote head for him.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. What was that like?
It was pretty incredible. The whole work. First of all, he knows what he wants.
Yeah.
The shot.
I don't
that
want to work with him. I think you never want to meet your hero. So I'm like, no, it's okay.
I was in shock and awe, but
Yeah.
he has everything's calm, but it's all in his head. He knows what he
Right.
wants. It was a particularly difficult shot that took a week to do, and not all films have.
And you got to operate that shot.
Yeah.
That took a week to do.
Yeah. Not all
Unbelievable.
films get that opportunity to do, but in this particular
Were
moment,
you perfect?
who am I at? Who's asking?
I'm asking. Stirling Bancroft is
God.
asking, were you perfect on that shot?
God, no. God, no.
God, no. You
Nope.
would make adjustments.
Oh, every day he'd come in, look at the shot, and say, "Change this, do that," and then disappear.
Oh, my.
Go next door, work the rest of the day, and the next day we do the same thing with the adjustments. So it was an amazing process to watch, and
That's why you had to be there for a week to prep the shot, because it's such a complicated shot.
It was.
You needed a week to rehearse it.
yes,
And it's just you on the wheels, like running the system. That's so beautiful.
it was. At the time, I was just more scared than anything else. But once
How scared were you?
shit scared.
Shit scared.
Yeah, for sure. It's
No one
like
talks about that. Everyone's like, I'm this cool operator. I've got the cool shoes on.
Yeah.
But like, when you get those opportunities, it's so invigorating.
I've been blessed in my career to have been able to have those kinds of moments where one day you're waiting for the phone to ring, and then the next day, a week later,
Spielberg
you're you got to go down to the States and work on a movie for a week.
Yeah.
Anyways, again, it's more about you, not me.
No, I mean, but it's your show. I mean, I think it'd be funny if we didn't. I mean, these are things that I'm interested in, so I'm being a bit selfish here.
Fair enough. Well, we can do that round 2. When we do a round 2 of these, you can come back. We'll
Right.
talk further about that.
Well, even Deacons will do a reversal where someone else gets to come and interview him.
Really?
Oh yeah, on his podcast.
Well, he
Yeah,
hasn't returned my phone call yet, but we'll work on it.
you gotta talk to James. I'm sure.
Got it. All right. I'll work on that one. Do you have a favorite movie or top three? Or are you like,
I don't have a favorite movie. I don't have
really?
a top three, but I do have films that I absolutely love.
Tell me.
Uh, Tarsem Singh directed a film called The Fall. I think it's a beautiful, stunning fairy tale. I just love the way it looks, and I love how they just went off and made it. I think it's stunning. I loved Arrival. I thought their sunset scenes and their dim scenes and all the photography of that was absolutely beautiful. Um, what else? Challengers I thought was fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, it's a new film out. I think Zendaya produced, but it's so great. Like they really told an interesting story and were unafraid of being bizarre and weird. It was a very serious film, but they also did very wacky things. They did it was serious, but they didn't take themselves too seriously,
Right.
which is a rare. It was serious, but it wasn't precious. I guess is a way to describe it.
Right.
It's a kind of indie movie. There's no sequel possible, and it's so rare to see those films in the theaters now. So it's nice to know that those films are still possible to make. I hope it makes money because it bode well for the rest of the industry.
I agree. I'm finding since before I got in the business, it's harder to find these independent movies because there's so much streaming. You got to dig deep to find anything that actually stands out. So you have to go
Right.
online and kind of go, what's good on Netflix that's indie that's a little bit different, and you can find it, but you got to dig for it, right? In your career, do you have any particular moments or particular projects that are to you you're most proud of, or you found particularly exciting?
Yeah. Okay. So at the top of the pandemic, I went to Taiwan. So everything was shut down. Uh, Everyone was in their 2 week lockdowns, which lasted forever. And I got a call to help a director that I adore, Leon, to shoot this film called Unsilenced. So I got the visa. I sat in quarantine in Taiwan, and then I emerged in the beginning of 2020 in a COVID-free island. And we made this incredible film about the beginning of Falun Gong as a political movement, um, and its persecution by the CCP.
Wow.
So, I mean, I always feel a little uncomfortable talking about this because uh, I'm sure by now I'm on some kind of list, and I'm probably not able to visit China. It's a beautiful country. I'd love to go, and I think the Chinese people are incredible. Um, but it's something where I know that it's important for us to speak against difficult governments or corrupt governments or dangerous governments, even when they're our own. So,
True enough.
uh,
So because of you working on that film, you think that you may be on a list to no-fly zone for coming back because it was
I,
a political,
it's a I mean, I love political movies, and I think that my favorite genre to work in is political thriller.
right?
I love the idea that we can tell these stories where people are fighting against power, or they're telling stories against other sources.
Right. Yeah, they're getting harder to make and harder to see, it seems, nowadays.
Right. Well, it's true. I mean, with the globalization of storytelling and the way that things are getting cheaper, and then different markets we have to sell into, it's very difficult to tell a story where you're critical of any one group or government.
It's funny. I just recently watched a movie about that. It's funny you mentioned that. What I find interesting is even 10 years ago, you watch a movie about a war movie and you know who the bad guys are,
Right.
whatever denomination they are.
Yeah.
Now these war movies are kind of generic bad guys in generic countries.
Hmm.
And it's just hard to wrap your head around because to me, it takes the immersion out of it. It's like,
Right.
well, who are they fighting against? Because there's no backstory to it. There's no history. If they're in a country that we don't know what it is,
Right.
fighting against a group that we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
So, uh, some of your interests outside of the film industry, Sterling. What do you do on your off days between shows?
That's a good question. Um, I mean, 2 years ago, before the strikes and the post strike barren desert that we find ourselves in, um, I would have said that I don't really have days off. That I am all in. That I live, breathe, and sleep filmmaking, and but these days I have a lot of time, and it's forced me to be very reflective about my life and about what's happening in the world. And I don't know that I'm happier for it, but certainly I think it's made us all better, or certainly more aware global citizens, I guess.
It's a fine line, isn't it, between wanting to be involved
Hmm.
and sharing with your friends, have you heard this? This is outrageous. Why aren't we doing something about it?
Right,
Or having it consume you and go, I just want to hide under the bed all day.
right. Well, I think it's a really difficult thing, but I think that we have to remember that we are, um, as individuals, not that powerful.
True. Yeah.
And I don't know if awareness campaigns are as useful as they used to be. I mean, everyone's talking about building awareness, but now we're so aware of so many situations that we feel so powerless about that it's really taken a toll on our mental health. And I don't advocate against not being aware of those things, but I think that it's hard to find the right place to put that information so that you can feel the appropriate anger for change, but that it doesn't um, make it difficult for you to function.
True enough. 30 years ago when I was in the business, people were hardened and strong. There was a lot more bullying going on in
Right.
all departments. I do see things progressive. There are way more women in departments that traditionally wouldn't have women in them. So
Hmm.
we are heading in the right direction. Yet, I think with the internet, the downside of that is I'm finding sometimes in my circles people that just go dark, and I'm concerned about them. They,
Right.
like you're saying, mental health. Um, 30 years ago, you just kind of sucked it up and just hid that.
Hmm.
Um, but mind you, you had less information at your
Hmm.
fingertips. It was a newspaper or maybe the radio. Now it's a deluge of information, good, bad, or otherwise. And I think I'm seeing a lot more mental health issues in the people with both within the industry, my industry, and outside. Have you seen similar similar situations?
Similar situations where I have friends who are having mental health issues,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I think everyone has. I think it's a very difficult time to find your place in the world, and it's difficult to see the gross atrocities and not be affected by it. And it's a difficult time to feel so powerless against those.
yep,
I
yep.
mean, growing up, we all spoke about how could the Holocaust happen, and here we live in a world where we see so many deaths every single day, and we go, "Oh, that's how it happened." We People are just surviving,
True.
and
And it doesn't help. I think. Well, it's a double edged sword. In our industry, there's all kinds of series and television shows out there about dystopian societies and apocalyptics and apocalypse and zombies and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
I personally don't watch a lot of those because I think kind of it erodes the mental well being. But that seems to be a driving theme these days, and that's our industry producing that.
Right.
So you could look at it two ways, like you were talking. Is that how we make our voices heard as a collective group by making these shows, or is it helping them, or is it hurting and being part of the problem?
Well, I don't think the projects reflect the vision or the voice of the collective group. I mean, it's always a very small number of people who are privileged to be writers and directors, mostly writers in this context. If it's about the context of or the actual construct of the writing that's deciding these stories. Um, so I don't think it represents us. I think it represents the people who are actually making those projects.
And I guess the people who are watching them, because let's face it, before the pandemic, not a lot of shows were done about pandemics. And all of a sudden, it's the new kind of story of the years.
Right, right.
Do you have any advice to give to people coming up in the industry, whether it just be the industry in general or someone who wants to be a director of photography who sees movies and goes, that's what I want to do?
That's tough. And I think we're living in an incredible time of job instability. And with the AI revolution, it's really hard to recommend working in film. It's really hard to recommend working in any position at all. I mean, like, if anyone wants, if a 12-year-old came up to me and said, I'm really excited to begin working, what should I do? I don't know what I would tell them. Maybe be a scientist or a political activist. Like, there's so few jobs that feel safe, and I think that everything is going to get worse as we move on. So it's a very
But traditionally, if I may interject,
yeah.
traditionally, even during depressions and recessions
Hmm.
and wars,
Yeah.
entertainment still happens, and people still want to watch other people dance. So, yeah, you're right, and AI is certainly a questionable issue. We've talked about it on this podcast, but at the end of the day, films are still handmade.
Hmm.
Someone's still got to point the camera, hang the light, and it'll be interesting to see what we're at 10 years from now. But
Right.
at the end of the day, I think entertainment is still something people want to see.
Right. But I mean, like for a young person getting into cinematography, um, in a system where we have seen the consolidation of major players and studios presently, our industry has shrunk a significant amount. And with that shrinking, we've seen a lot of the bigger cinematographers take smaller jobs.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so the question of how to break in, I don't know. I don't think now is a good time to break in. I think now is a good time to be getting education. I think now is a good time to be doing anything else. If you have passion, if you want to learn something, go and learn something. Um, but I don't know if now is a good time to be upgrading. I don't think so. I don't think now is a good time to be entering the industry when people are being forced out. I don't think I would recommend trying to break in at a time when the people in it are being forced out. I think that we're in a survivorship world right now, and there. If you're looking to get in to be a professional to make money, then I think you've missed the boat presently. And maybe things will change in 5 to 10 years when we start to develop into a new industry as things change, as we get past this hurdle. But it's not a great time. I don't think I wouldn't recommend it to anyone starting up.
That's sad to hear, unfortunately, but I have to agree with you in a lot of ways. And it doesn't help also, Sterling, that the studios and the streaming services are still trying to find their feet.
Hmm.
Things are changing quite rapidly, whereas 30 years ago, it went to the theaters or it went onto episodic. Well, now you can binge watch. So that changes the landscape altogether. And budgets seem to be going way up, and living expenses seem to go way up as well. So I can
Hmm.
I can empathize with you on that.
Right.
What's next for you? What do you see on your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan? What do you see in the future for you?
I think there's a number of big questions. I would love to shoot beautiful little indie features, and then I just worked as a second unit DP on Final Destination, so I'm hoping that I'm able to shoot more studio pictures as well. So that's it. If I could shoot beautiful projects that satisfy me financially, and also shoot beautiful projects that satisfy me artistically, they don't have to be the same project, but that would be my ideal.
It sounds like pretty much your career so far. You've been working on some pretty exciting projects and getting paid to do it.
That I mean, that's what I love, and I think if you follow the love, you always find projects that are meaningful to you, and that's what I've done. And it's difficult to do that. I think I've been lucky enough to be able to turn away projects that I didn't feel were a good fit for me, or that had too many lines of dialogue, for
Right.
instance. But I do feel lucky to have been able to found some success doing projects that I'm excited about.
Brilliant. Sterling, thank you for being on the circus.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, that about wraps it up for another episode of Crew Tales, Life in the Circus. I'd like to thank our producers Dustin Schwinnard and Dustin Girton, as well as our technical producer Rob Hunt. I'm Brad Hodson. Thank you for joining us.